right, our next big concept in this section is solving systems of linear inequalities in two variables. When solving systems of linear inequalities in two variables, we're simply graphing two linear inequalities in two variables on the same coordinate system, and then we are going to shade the region where they overlap. And those will be the sections that are both our systems. This is exactly what we did with the linear inequality, or the compound linear inequality that we saw before. I'm going to pause here just for a second, and I'm going to go back to that compound linear inequality in one variable, and that way we can kind of talk about the way that these things are alike. So let me go find that and we'll talk about it and the way that that's alike or similar to what we're doing here with the system of linear inequalities. Okay, remember our compound linear inequality, and it actually is the statement of two simple linear inequalities. So reading from the middle to the left, and then also reading from the middle to the right. So we have 4x minus 7 is greater than 0, and at the same time, this is the key, right? 4x minus 7 is less than 9. And so what we did when we originally learned to solve these was that we solved both sides of the inequality. So we said 4x is greater than 7, and then we solved that, and we said, okay, that means that x is greater than 4/7. And so this is 4 going into 7 just one time with 3 left over, so 1 3/4. And then over here, we're going to solve this one by adding 7 to both sides. So now we have 4x, and then 7 plus 9, which is 16. Oops, I wrote equal, that should be a less than. And then multiplying by the reciprocal on both sides. And so what we see is x is less than, and this is 4. And remember, there's an and between these. So remember what we did here is we said, okay, well, here's 1 here, and then 1, 2, 3, and there's our 2 there. So this is 1 3/4 here. So 1 3/4, it's greater than that, right there. And then less than 4, so there's 3 there, and there's 4 right there. So if we had less than 4, so we have less than 4 there. And remember what our solution was the overlap of these. So from here to here is where our solution is. So we have a solution set from there to there and in between. And so this is the same thing that we're going to see in our linear inequality in two variables, a system of those as well. So this is like a system of linear equations in one variable, and our system of linear inequalities is going to be the same thing. It's going to be the overlap of these two sets. So we're going to have the boundary lines with their solutions, the boundary lines with their solutions, and then where we see overlap, and we have the boundaries that surround that. And that's exactly what we're going to do with our linear inequalities. Now I'm going to pause this and get back to where we were supposed to be. So you're just going to see a new thing in a second. Okay, so now back to the system of linear inequalities in two variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this inequality, and I'm going to graph this inequality on the same coordinate system. So I'm going to pause, and I'm going to graph the first one, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to graph the second one, and then I'll show you the overlap. Okay, so here's our first inequality graphed with the checkpoints here. You have your boundary line here, solid boundary line, shading below it. Notice that when it's in slope-intercept form, this says less than or equal to, and less than or equal to was where we shaded. Now I'm going to graph the other one as well. I'm going to pause it so you're not going to see anything except for that result. Okay, now you see the solution for y is greater than x plus 2. Boundary line here, it's dotted because it's a strict inequality, and I've shaded above. I see this checkpoint here. Notice that when it's in slope-intercept form, the inequality says greater than, and look, I've shaded above the line. Okay, now what we're going to see is that there's overlap here and here. So to give the solution, I'm going to shade the boundary lines that surround the solution and shade in between. I'll do that, and I'll pause here. All right, now here you see the solution set shaded in pink, and right here is where those two boundaries